undercover ICE agents are abducting and kidnapping people off the street.
There's a lot of people that are not at work or not at school because of the fear.
We just want to live our lives.
Why did your family come here? Immigrants. For the past decade or so, immigration has been a bit of a hot button issue in America. And it especially is right now because not only are we being led by the one and only Donald Trump,
I want to build the wall. We need the wall.
but also because at the time of this recording, we are currently in the middle of anti-ICE protests and what some would call riots in Los Angeles and across the country. Now, how did we get here? If you aren't aware, ICE is a federal agency that focuses on the deportation of undocumented immigrants. So basically, if you didn't come here through the normal legal channels, they're trying to get you out of here. And they've been running rampant on Hispanic communities over the past month as part of President Trump's crackdown on immigration. There have been countless instances of them barging into schools, courthouses, and workplaces to deport as many undocumented individuals as they can find. Now, obviously, a big question is why? Trump's been advocating for mass deportation for almost a decade now, so none of this should come as a surprise. But why did people want this? Why did millions of Americans come out and vote for Trump with immigration as a driving factor for their voting? Why does it feel like as every year passes, a large sector of our population has growing fear towards immigration, especially within the conservative sphere? In order to find out, I thought I'd ask them. What are your thoughts on immigration in America?
The problem is when you get to an idea about mass scale immigration. So we have taken in, the conservative estimates are about at least 10 million illegal immigrants. I just don't think that's appropriate.
How do you feel about the ongoing protests and what some would call riots going on across America and most specifically in LA?
I think they're completely unwarranted.
But when you start burning down buildings and when you start, looting cars and things like that, it turns a lot of people off.
I found you off a clip that went viral this past week of you acting as somewhat of a counter protester at an anti-ICE protest.
I want fascism! I want ICE!
Is there a reason that you did those things? Is there a reason you antagonized those protesters in the way that you did?
Well, originally, the goal wasn't to antagonize people.
Deport them all!
How do you think undocumented people that are already here should be dealt with?
It's a very complex subject, right? So it has to be kind of a case-by-case situation, right?
Deport them.
If you're a criminal, you should be deported immediately.
Every single society that is ethnically unhomogeneous, they have more societal issues than ethnically homogeneous nations.
What do you like about President Donald Trump and his stances on this issue?
I think he's absolutely right.
If you had to sum up the three main issues with immigration in America, what would they be? And specifically, like illegal immigration.
It starts to deplete the resources that we have in this country to take out about $150 billion worth of welfare. Of course, who's ultimately footing the bill is American taxpayers.
Human trafficking, drug trafficking, weapons trafficking.
We saw cases, I think Vivek Ramaswamy pointed it out. He went to the inner city Chicago community and they were using a public high school that was supposed to be serving the community there to house illegal immigrants because there were so many people coming into the country. They were using like the high school gymnasium.
American women.
Safety concern. If somebody didn't register your birth and there was no way for the government to know who you were, then, people would be concerned. Like, what's this guy doing?
Children and other women and stuff like that.
Okay, so I guess you can say conservatives have a lot of opinions on the matter, but we're not here for opinions. We're here for facts. For the most part, it seemed like the conservatives I interviewed gave me three main reasons for why they are against illegal immigration. And I think it'd be great for the video if we did a deep dive into each of these specific reasons in order to verify and analyze them to make sure that they're true. I think that way we can really determine if this is a reasonable thing to be upset about. So let's dive into it. Okay, so reason one is actually a very popular one when it comes to people who are hesitant towards immigrants in this country. And that reason is welfare. Conservatives claim that undocumented people are coming here and basically abusing the welfare system by using up our tax dollars without paying into the system themselves. Because they claim since they don't have any papers, they don't have to pay taxes, but the welfare restrictions are so lax that they end up getting welfare anyways. And yeah, I get it. I see how you could say that that's a valid concern to have. Me personally, as an American taxpayer, I more so care about my money going towards wars that I didn't agree to fund, but whatever, I get it. You think these people are mooching off the system without contributing to it, and yeah, I can see how that would be unfair. So I was curious and I looked into the numbers to see how bad it actually was, but the claims weren't lining up. Although conservatives were making the claim that undocumented people don't pay taxes, it turns out they were wrong, because the government reported that in the year of 2022 alone, undocumented immigrants paid $96.7 billion in taxes. Which, okay, maybe they're paying taxes, but that doesn't mean that they're not abusing the welfare system, right? However, it was also found that in that same year, undocumented immigrants received only $42 billion in welfare. So the claim that these people are taking more from the system than they put in is completely false. And it makes more sense the more you look at it, because even though undocumented immigrants pay taxes, most of the time they're not qualified for most of the common welfare systems. For example, things like food stamps, regular Medicaid, cash assistance, they're not qualified to receive those benefits. So I don't really know where these guys are getting their info from, but unfortunately the first reason just isn't true. Crazy, right? Okay, so we're 0 for 1 so far, but it's okay. Although that line of reasoning didn't really pan out, I'm sure the conservatives are well informed on immigration, and they have other more reputable reasons as to why it's a bad thing for undocumented people to be here. Which brings me into reason number 2, which is the concept that undocumented immigrants are abusing public resources. So this claim's a bit similar to the first one, but it has a distinction where instead of it being welfare, these people are coming here and taking hold of public institutions that should be here for American citizens, and instead taking it for themselves. The example that Owen provided is that he claimed that Republican politician Vivek Ramaswamy went to Chicago and found a public high school where there were a bunch of undocumented immigrants sleeping in the gymnasium. And yeah, when you first hear that, that sounds ridiculous. Like, we have a public school that's funded by American tax dollars that kids are going to in order to learn. But because there are so many undocumented immigrants coming in from Mexico and other countries, the government's just housing them in this high school gymnasium. And I gotta agree, maybe they got me here, because honestly, that would be weird. That is, until I investigated these claims. So it turns out that the school that they're referring to is called St. Bartholomew. But there were some red flags because, for example, St. Bartholomew is not a public school. It's actually a private Catholic school. So the claim that this is a public resource funded by and for the people doesn't really line up. But there's an additional issue with the claim, because while I say it is a Catholic high school, I should instead say was, because the school actually shut down 2 years prior to housing these immigrants. It shut down because of bad enrollment rates, which led to them not being able to afford to keep the doors open. And then the empty building was converted into housing for undocumented immigrants since police lobbies were filling up with them. So yeah, this isn't really a case of immigrants abusing the public services for their own good. You know, it's funny because if anything, I would think that conservatives would honestly be for this if they knew the right details. As it's widely known, conservatives aren't too fond of the homeless. So the government putting all these people in this housing, which they have rules and curfews and restrictions for what they're allowed to do, would probably make conservative America feel better than just having them loose and run wild on the streets. But yeah, reason 2 doesn't really add up either. Come on, bro. Come on, let's do it. Okay, whatever. We're 0 for 2 so far, right? But I promise we're gonna figure it out. I promise. Okay, yeah, I think we got it here. The third reason is actually probably the most prevalent reason that conservatives use to say that undocumented immigrants are bad for the country. And that is the issue of safety. Many claim that the people coming across the border illegally, in addition to that crime already of passing the border, are criminals. I mean, yeah, that makes sense, right? Like, they're coming from a country that's objectively worse than America, right? So, like, naturally, they'll be bringing those crime tendencies over here. I'm sure you know, but this is something that Donald Trump has very vocally pushed.
They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're
But yeah, it makes sense. I don't want a bunch of criminals coming here to kill me, right? Like, that's not good. So let's get to the bottom of this. Let's verify this reason, and then we'll have at least one reason. One reason's good enough. Good enough for me, you know? Okay, so just... Wait, what? It says here that undocumented immigrants actually commit less crimes in each major crime category compared to both US born citizens and legal immigrants? I give up. So yeah, maybe conservatives don't have the right info. Which is honestly confusing, because to me, it didn't seem like the people I was interviewing were lying. I think they truly believe these things. But why? What put them on the path to have this mindset? In order to find out, I did some digging on the side and even talked to some conservatives I know in my own life. And the more digging I did, I just kept coming to the same conclusion. Politicians. That's right, those slimy little guys that we hate to hate and hate to hate. They may or may not be influencing the public, which I know to a lot of people is like, yeah, duh. But I think it especially applies to this topic of illegal immigration. In my opinion, I think that the undocumented person in America is the perfect scapegoat for politicians to use. Oh no, don't blame me for your problems. I'm Mr. Republican politician. It's the Mexican. He's stealing your lunch. or not. I can't prove it, but he's doing it. I promise. A couple of the conservatives I talked to in this video didn't really seem like bad people. They just seemed a bit misguided. So in order to understand this phenomenon more, I think we have to go straight to the heart of the beast. This is Alex Balekian. He's the vice chairman of the Republican Party in Los Angeles. And he also ran for Congress this past year, which unfortunately he did not win. Sorry, Alex. And not only is he a very reputable conservative politician, he is also very outspoken on the issue of illegal immigration and on the protests currently happening in his very own city, Los Angeles. So in order to understand if these politicians are really abusing their power and influencing the masses towards lies, I asked if he'd be down for an interview, and what would you know? He said yes. Mr. Balekian, hi. Now I think we're ready to get started. Okay, again, thank you for joining me. What are your thoughts on illegal immigration?
We have borders, we have laws. Same as you would treat your own home, right? You don't leave it open for anybody to come in. This country was built on the strength of its immigrants, but we need to be picky and choosy for people who are going to contribute.
So do you think that us determining which immigrants are good to keep here in the country is determined upon the value that they provide to our country?
I think that every person should be a productive member of society because the government doesn't want to have people that are going to strain the safety net.
How do you feel about President Trump's current stance on immigrants in this country?
You know, I'm from Los Angeles, so to talk about the riots that are going on and the response of the federal government, we should actually address how we got here. Local and state governments were spending money to provide services to illegal immigrants at the expense of American citizens. So if you were a reasonable, rational individual, why wouldn't you want an illegal immigrant who is breaking laws, robbery, theft, vandalism, drunk driving? Why wouldn't you want that person automatically identified and deported? And that is exactly who Donald Trump is going after.
Obviously, in our society, politicians in many circumstances can shape the way that the public think. What are your thoughts on the impact that you have as a politician, not only towards citizens here in the country, but also your potential impact on undocumented families from your advocations?
I don't consider myself a politician. I consider myself a concerned citizen.
Do you yourself have any worries or empathy for some undocumented people that might have their families rooted here in America and they are being split up from their families because of these mass deportations by ICE? Do you think that that's just, or that's what we should be doing?
My thoughts are, we are a nation of laws. Those illegal immigrants who came to this country knew that they were breaking the rules when they came in.
I think it's fitting for me to ask you what your thoughts are on the ongoing protests and what some would call riots across the country, most specifically in the place you're from, Los Angeles.
I think it's unfortunate. I think this is a vocal fringe minority that's doing this because they are violent, because they are destructive with public property and private businesses. All of these people, these democratic, socialist, communists that are participating in this, they are reprehensible.
Would you recommend people attending these protests and taking to the streets in defiance to President Trump's words?
Do I recommend that people attend this No King protest?
For example, yeah, there's the No Kings protest happening tomorrow. Would you recommend anyone to attend that?
These protests inevitably turn violent and destructive. I think that mentally unhinged people are going to participate regardless. Rational people should stay away.
American. I'm here today in Los Angeles at the No Kings protest to get the other side of the story.
Oh, no, thank you. Guys, you need that energy.
We've already talked to conservatives and Americans who have concern over undocumented people being in this country. Now it's time to talk to those who are fighting against President Trump's policies and mass deportation of their neighbors in this country. I'm here with Hunter Dunn, the Director of Public Relations and Media at 5051. Is there any chance you could explain to us real quick what your organization does?
5051 stands for 50 states, 50 protests, one movement to unite against Trump's authoritarian executive overreach.
What are your thoughts towards the actions taken by ICE and the LAPD over the past week?
Our city is literally under siege by ICE and the National Guard, taking hostages people from their churches, from graduations, from their court appointments.
What are your thoughts about Trump's policies on immigration?
Pretty terrible. Yeah.
What brings you here today?
My family immigrated here illegally. I just want to be the voice that they can't have.
Any chance I could ask one of you guys a question? Not even asking what your purpose for presence is here today? All right, what does it mean to be an American?
A lot of different countries, people don't have as many rights. And as a country that aims to be land of the free, it would be nice to see that be upheld.
What would you say to some Americans who may have some disdain or fear towards undocumented people or immigrants in this country?
From a logical perspective, undocumented immigrants actually commit crime at a lower rate than natural-born American citizens. Immigrants are actually safer to be around statistically than you or me.
I feel like a lot of Americans are really scared about immigrants coming here and commit crimes. Are you or any of your family by chance criminals or involved in any criminal activity?
No, not at all.
These aren't just random people that they're taking. They're taking your friends, your family, your co-workers, people that you meet, people at your school, people that sit in the pews with you. These are real human beings, not a statistic.
What does your family do for like work?
My dad literally just works for a beverage company and my mom just works at a retail store.
What's your message to ICE and the Trump administration?
Guys, from a gringo, you know what I'm saying, dog?
Why do you think that Americans are so scared of immigrants?
I think most Americans just have this perception of immigrants. They think their intentions of coming to the U.S. are ill. They want to believe that because they want someone to blame. Almost just like implemented into them at this point.
Why did your family come here?
My family came here for a better life.
What would your message be, both to undocumented families in this country and also to the country as a whole in this time?
We're here for you and we're going to fight for you and we're going to make sure that your rights are respected whether the administration likes it or not.
Now, I don't know about you, but after finishing these interviews in this video, I'm starting to think maybe these people aren't all that bad. I think the beautiful thing about America is its people. You're able to have such a culturally diverse nation with such connected communities and goals. And it seems like a shame to try and erase that. So don't let bad acting media or politicians lead you astray. At the end of the day, we're all Americans who want the best for our country and everyone in it. So let's start acting like it. Because after all, libertad para todos. Or as us Americans would call it, freedom for all.